The rising sun filtered through the hotel room curtains in Manila, where Manny Pacquiao contemplated the city that had seen him born and grow. His thoughts wandered between the intense training of recent weeks and the longing he felt for his family, especially his 12-year-old daughter, Mary Divine Grace. This would be one of the most important fights of his career, not only for the world title at stake, but because he had promised himself it would be one of his last, before fully dedicating himself to his political career and family. Manny's calloused hands absently touched his phone, scrolling through photos of Mary Divine Grace and his other children, while his trainer, Buboy Fernandez, organized the final details for the morning training session. The pressure of that fight weighed on his shoulders like never before, as critics said that, at 42, his time of glory had passed. However, Manny carried with him a determination forged in the poor streets of General Santos City, where he began his journey selling cigarettes to help his mother support the family. The room was silent, except for the distant sound of Manila traffic and the soft hum of the air conditioner. Manny rose, feeling each muscle in his body protest after the brutal training of the previous day. His eyes fell on a small table in the corner of the room, where a pile of correspondence had been left by his team, mostly fan letters and some documents that would need his attention after the fight. Among the colorful envelopes and elaborate letters from admirers, Manny noticed a simple envelope, made of school notebook paper, with his name written in the imperfect calligraphy he would recognize anywhere. The fighter's heart raced, knowing that letter came from Mary Divine Grace, his daughter who had always been reserved with her emotions, preferring written communication to long phone conversations. With care, almost reverence, Manny picked up the envelope, feeling the emotional weight those childish words would surely carry. The solitude of the hotel room seemed to amplify the significance of that moment as Manny carefully opened the envelope so as not to tear it. His fingers, which had so often delivered powerful blows against formidable opponents, now trembled slightly as he unfolded the colorful pages decorated with drawings and stickers that revealed the heart of a girl who idolized her father but also suffered from his absences. The first words of Mary Divine Grace's letter hit Manny like a precise blow, more powerful than any he had ever received in the ring. The girl began by telling about her latest piano recital, where she had played her father's favorite song, and how she had looked at the empty chair in the front row, reserved especially for him. There was no accusation in her words, only the acknowledgement of a reality they both knew too well, the constant absence that success demanded. As his eyes ran over each carefully written line, Manny felt a lump forming in his throat. Mary Divine Grace spoke about moments she treasured like treasures, the rare Sunday mornings when her father prepared pan de sal, the traditional Filipino bread, for the family breakfast, the stories he told about his poor childhood and how that inspired her to value every opportunity she had, and the moments when, even exhausted from training, he found the strength to help her with homework. The letter continued with Mary Divine Grace revealing her deepest fears, words she had never had the courage to say personally. She confessed to having frequent nightmares where her father was seriously injured in a fight, waking up bathed in tears and unable to go back to sleep. She described how she watched her father's fights hidden behind a pillow, praying fervently with each blow he received, feeling in her soul each fist that hit the face of the man she most admired in the world. Manny needed to pause his reading, feeling the weight of tears threatening to fall. He got up and walked to the window, observing the vibrant city below. So different from General Santos City, where he had grown up in extreme poverty. Everything he had conquered, every title, every victory, every penny earned, had been motivated by the desire to give his family the life he never had. But now, the sincere words of Mary Divine Grace made him question the price of that success. With a deep sigh, Manny returned to the letter, emotionally preparing himself for what else his daughter had to say. Mary Divine Grace's next words were a mixture of pride and concern, telling how she had defended her father at school when classmates said he was too old to continue fighting, and how she secretly agreed with them, fearing that each new fight could be the one that would take him away from her permanently. Mary Divine Grace's letter took on a deeper tone as she shared childhood memories, precious moments that Manny didn't know had been so significant to her. She wrote about a night 4 years earlier when a strong storm had hit Manila, causing a blackout across the city. Instead of being frustrated with the situation, Manny had turned the darkness into an adventure, lighting candles throughout the house and telling stories of Filipino ghosts, like the Manananggal and the Kapre, making shadows on the walls with his hands to frighten and amuse the children. Mary Divine Grace recalled how that night, lying in the dark listening to her father's voice, she had felt completely safe despite the storm raging outside. She confessed that that simple night, without electronics or distractions, just the family gathered sharing stories by candlelight, remained one of her most cherished memories. The irony didn't escape Manny. Amid so many grand events and luxurious celebrations, the moment that had marked his daughter was precisely one of the simplest and most spontaneous. Next, the girl mentioned the last time she had seen her father fight in person 2 years earlier, when he had let her enter the locker room after the victory. She described with painful details how shocked she had been to see her father's swollen face, the cuts being sutured, the dried blood still visible in his hair. Mary Divine Grace admitted that she had cried silently in the stadium bathroom for 20 minutes before being able to compose herself and smile when she met him for photos and celebrations. The letter then shifted to a more hopeful tone, with Mary Divine Grace sharing her dream of becoming a doctor, inspired both by the suffering she saw on her father's face after fights and by the stories he told about the lack of adequate medical care in his poor childhood. She explained how she studied diligently, determined to earn a scholarship in medicine, so that one day she could care not only for her father, but also for children in poor communities in the Philippines. Manny felt a wave of pride so intense that he needed to sit on the edge of the bed. His daughter, still so young, already demonstrated a compassion and determination that he recognized in himself. Tears now flowed freely down the champion's face as he realized that, amid all his absences, something good had blossomed. Mary Divine Grace's strong character and generous heart reflected the values that he and Jinky had strived to pass on to their children. The letter continued, and Mary Divine Grace began to reveal thoughts that deeply surprised Manny. She wrote about a recent school project where she had to research a Filipino national hero and how she had chosen her father as the subject, not only for his success in boxing, but mainly for the humanitarian and political work he carried out. Mary Divine Grace described how impressed she had been to discover the extent of Manny's social initiatives, building schools and hospitals in remote areas of the Philippines, and how that had made her better understand his absences. With surprising maturity for her 12 years, Mary Divine Grace confessed that she was beginning to understand that she shared her father with an entire nation. She explained how, during her research, she had read testimonials from Filipinos who had been directly helped by Manny's actions, and how that had filled her with a pride that surpassed the sadness of empty chairs at recitals and school games. The girl admitted that, although she still missed him, she was learning to see the bigger picture of her father's sacrifices. However, the tone of the letter changed again when Mary Divine Grace shared a recent incident at school. A physical education teacher had made a derogatory comment about Manny's age, suggesting he should retire before something serious happened. Mary Divine Grace described how she had felt her blood boil with anger, but instead of responding impulsively, she had raised her hand and politely listed all her father's recent victories against much younger opponents, demonstrating with statistics and facts why he was still relevant in the sport. Manny couldn't contain a smile amid the tears. His daughter had inherited not only his determination, but also his diplomacy, qualities that had helped him both in the ring and in the political arena. Imagining her defending him with such eloquence filled his heart with indescribable pride, even though the incident also made him reflect on the teacher's words. After all, how many times in recent years had he himself questioned whether it wasn't time to hang up the gloves? Approaching the end of the letter, Mary Divine Grace finally came to the main reason for her writing. She revealed that, after much reflection and prayer, she had decided to make a request she had never before had the courage to make. With simple but emotionally charged words, she asked that this be her father's last fight, regardless of the outcome. She begged him to come home once and for all, to be present to see her grow up, to teach her to drive when the time came, to walk her down the aisle in the distant future. The raw sincerity of those words made the fighter's heart tighten in his chest. Manny's hands visibly trembled as he turned to the last page of Mary Divine Grace's letter. The paper was slightly wrinkled in some places, where the girl's tears had fallen during writing. She continued her plea, explaining that she understood how much boxing meant to her father and to the Filipino people, but that she also knew of the growing risks with each fight. With wisdom beyond her years, Mary Divine Grace cited medical studies on brain injuries in veteran boxers, revealing how much she had researched on the subject, driven by the fear of losing her father to the sequelae of the sport that had made him famous. Manny felt a pang of guilt as he realized the weight his career placed on his daughter's small shoulders. While he focused on training and strategies for the ring, Mary Divine Grace spent nights researching cranial trauma and neurological damage, carrying worries that no child should have. The image of his daughter staying up late, reading complex medical articles when she should be dreaming of things typical of her age, broke something inside the fighter. The letter then took an unexpected turn, with Mary Divine Grace revealing that she had begun to write a detailed diary about her father. She explained that she feared that, if the worst happened in the ring or years later due to accumulated injuries, her memories might fade over time. The diary was her way of preserving every moment, every piece of advice, every story her father had shared. Mary Divine Grace described the blue-covered notebook, where she meticulously recorded from her father's small habits, like his peculiar way of tying shoelaces, always starting with the left foot, to the great life lessons he had taught. The following words were a direct blow to Manny's heart. Mary Divine Grace confessed that she kept clippings of all the news about her father's fights, even those that spoke of defeats or serious injuries. She maintained this collection not out of pride, but as a constant reminder of the physical consequences her father faced for his career. The girl admitted to having created a small altar in her room, where she prayed every night for her father's safety, lighting candles before his photo whenever he was away at training or competitions. The final paragraph of the letter was a promise and a request. Mary Divine Grace promised to support any decision her father made, even if he decided to continue fighting, because she understood that respect for others, dreams, and choices was one of the most important lessons he had taught her. However, she asked that before stepping into the ring for this fight, Manny looked to the front row, where she would be sitting for the first time, having begged Jinky to let her attend in person. She asked that, upon seeing her, her father remember that there was an entire life waiting for him outside the ring, a life where he was already the undisputed champion, not for his titles, but for his heart. As he carefully folded the letter and put it back in the envelope, Manny heard knocks on the door. It was Buboy, his trainer, announcing it was time for morning training. With a slightly choked voice, Manny asked for a few additional minutes, claiming he needed to finish his prayers. Alone again, the fighter walked to the bathroom mirror, facing the reflection of a face marked by countless battles. The subtle scars around the eyes, the small deformity in the nose broken multiple times, the signs of time and fights that accumulated on his skin. Manny's thoughts wandered between Mary Divine Grace's words and the obligations that awaited him. This fight represented more than just another title. It was a multi-million-dollar contract, with commitments to sponsors, expectations of an entire nation, and the chance to establish another historic record in world boxing. Throughout his career, he had fought not only for himself but for his people, transforming each victory into an opportunity to help poor communities in his country. How could he simply abandon all this? The following hours passed like in a nebulous dream. Manny mechanically followed the training routine, but his mind was distant, reliving memories of Mary Divine Grace, her birth, her first steps, the first time she pronounced tatai, calling him father. Buboy noticed the unusual distraction of his fighter, but attributed it to the pressure of the imminent fight, without suspecting the true emotional turmoil taking place inside the champion. During lunch with his team, Manny remained silent, responding only when directly questioned. His eyes frequently got lost in the urban landscape of Manila, visible through the restaurant windows, following the movement of families strolling together in the streets below. He observed with particular attention fathers walking hand in hand with their daughters, wondering how many such moments he had lost over the years, sacrificed on the altar of his career. In the afternoon, during a session with the local press, a young reporter from Samar province asked Manny what he considered his greatest legacy. The seemingly simple question made the fighter pause longer than normal. While the cameras awaited his response, Manny's mind was filled not with his titles or historic victories, but with the image of Mary Divine Grace carefully writing in her blue diary, preserving memories of a father who was frequently absent. It was at that moment that something fundamental began to change within him. The night before the fight arrived with an unexpected storm over Manila, as if the heavens reflected Manny's internal turbulence. As heavy raindrops battered the windows of his hotel room, the fighter finished a call with Jinky, who confirmed that she and the children, including Mary Divine Grace, had arrived safely in the city and would be present in the arena the next day. Jinky's voice conveyed the usual concern, mixed with the love and support she had always shown throughout their 2 decades together. After hanging up, Manny removed Mary Divine Grace's letter from the inner pocket of his suitcase, where he had kept it since morning. He reread his daughter's words once more, each phrase now engraved in his heart. His eyes rested on a specific passage, where Mary Divine Grace described her recurring dream of a future where her father would always be present, not just on special occasions, but in small, everyday moments, helping with homework, teaching her to ride a bicycle without training wheels, sharing stories during family dinner. Insomnia, a frequent companion on the eves of big fights, visited Manny once again. However, unlike the nights before other combats, when his mind was occupied with strategies and techniques, this time his thoughts were entirely focused on Mary Divine Grace and the decision that was beginning to take shape in his heart. Around 3 in the morning, unable to sleep, Manny quietly left the room and headed to the empty hotel gym, where he sat alone in the center of the improvised ring. In the solitude of that moment, Manny mentally relived his extraordinary trajectory, from the hungry boy who sold cigarettes in the streets of General Santos City to becoming the only boxer to win world titles in 8 different categories. He remembered the most difficult fights, the moments when he almost gave up, the countless times he got up after being knocked down. But for the first time, he allowed himself to clearly visualize the personal cost of that journey, the missed birthdays, the Christmas nights spent in training camps, the irrecoverable moments of his children's childhood. With dawn approaching, Manny returned to the room and keyed on an impulse and took a paper and pen. He began to write his own letter to Mary Divine Grace, the words flowing directly from his heart, without filters or hesitations. In that letter, he revealed his own fears and hopes, his regrets and dreams. And most importantly, he shared a decision he had just made in the silent hours of dawn, a promise sealed not only with words, but with the absolute certainty that we only find in moments of true clarity. The day of the fight dawned with a surprisingly clear sky after the night storm. The Quezon City arena was completely packed hours before the main combat, with thousands of Filipinos wearing the national colors and carrying signs of support for their national hero. The atmosphere was electrifying, a mixture of celebration and almost religious ceremony, as always happened during Manny's fights on Filipino soil. Behind the scenes, Manny completed his pre-fight rituals with an unusual calmness that intrigued his team. After the traditional collective prayer, he asked for a few moments alone, during which he removed Mary Divine Grace's letter from his robe pocket, now accompanied by his own response, not yet delivered. He kissed both envelopes before putting them away again, like a talisman that carried not just words, but the weight of a promise and a decision. When the moment finally came to walk to the ring, Manny felt an emotion different from anything he had ever experienced in his long career. His eyes scanned the crowd until they found, in the front row, exactly where she had promised to be, the anxious face of Mary Divine Grace. Their gazes crossed for a brief moment, a silent communication more powerful than any word. Manny noticed that she was holding something against her chest, the blue diary she had mentioned in the letter, and that vision crystallized his resolution. The fight itself was a spectacle of technique and heart, like all the great battles of Manny's career. His opponent, a younger and larger champion, found in the Filipino a renewed determination, a precision and focus that disconcerted both commentators and spectators. It wasn't the desperate fury of a veteran trying to prove his worth, but the serene and perfect execution of a master who knew every inch of the ring like the palm of his own hand. In the interval between the 11th and 12th rounds, with victory already practically guaranteed by points, Manny looked once more at Mary Divine Grace in the front row. The girl had tears in her eyes, but a smile of pride illuminated her face. It was then that Manny knew, with a certainty that transcended any doubt, that this would really be his last combat. It didn't matter that new million-dollar contracts were being prepared, that politicians and businessmen planned future historic fights. None of that was worth the price of his daughter's tears, the weight of her concern, the absence in the pages of her life that could never be rewritten. With that understanding, Manny entered the final round not only fighting against his opponent, but dancing his farewell to the sport that had defined his life, a last waltz with glory before embracing a new chapter, one in which he would be, before any title or conquest, simply Mary Divine Grace's father.
Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next cases.